It's not popping up any sound. Okay, now you're good.
Okay, we'd like to welcome everybody to our public hearing this evening. Sandra McKee will read our notice of hearing. After she's completed that, we'll turn the time over to HECO engineers to explain what this hearing is all about.
Notice of public hearing. The Cambridge City Council will hold a public hearing on February 12th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at Cambridge City Hall, 80 South Superior Street, Cambridge, Idaho, to present the technically approved wastewater facility plan and to hear verbal and written comments regarding the alternatives under consideration in the wastewater facility plan. The City of Cambridge has prepared a facility planning document detailing potential wastewater system improvements that may be required to accommodate regulatory requirements and future community growth. Discussion will be held during the regular City Council meeting following the public hearing on February 12, 2024, and a decision by the City Council will be made at the regular City Council meeting on March 11, 2024. The City of Cambridge invites the residents of Cambridge and its surrounding area to review and comment on the wastewater facility plan document that will be available at Cambridge City Hall from January 16, 2024 to February 12, 2024. It is available during regular business hours from February 1st through February 12th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and at other times by calling City Clerk Sandra McKee at 550-0591 or by email cityclerk@cambridge.id.gov or Corey Morgan 208-570-1594 to schedule a time to view the document. The public is invited to attend and comment upon the proposed water facility plan. Anyone who wishes to comment but is unable to attend the hearing may submit written comments to the Cambridge City Clerk, P.O. Box 220, Cambridge, Idaho 83610, or email cityclerk@cambridge.id.gov. City Hall and the council chambers are accessible for persons with disabilities. Any person needing special accommodations to participate in the meeting should contact City Clerk Sandra McKee at 208-257-3318 or 208-550-0591 at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. Written public comments should be submitted prior to the start of the public hearing on February 12, 2024 in order for the City of Cambridge to complete and submit the final wastewater facility plan document to the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality.
Okay, Robert and George.
Thank you. It takes a bit to get it come through.
You want us to turn half the lights off?
Yeah, it's a better mood.
One above it right there anyway. Oh, you know why? It's not connected over here. The blue got disconnected, that blue cord. Oh, yeah, that's why. There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
All right, now we're ready to cook them with gas. Good evening, Mayor, council members, members of the public. My name is George Merkel. I'm a senior environmental engineer with HECO Engineers. Robert Almanza is a staff engineer. Between us, we collaborated and created this planning document for your consideration. Next. Today's public hearing is to present the findings of the draft facility plan. We hope to explain the treatment and upgrade alternatives. There were a fairly large number if you were to look through the entire document. We will focus mainly on the ones that seem to be the best ones for the City of Cambridge to pursue further. We'll talk about some of the funding options that would be available, potential financial impacts. Exact financial impacts would still be somewhat up in the air at this point until we get a little bit farther along into the process and actually into design. But at least in a general sense, you have some idea of what some of the sorts of things that might be coming. The idea of the public hearing was to solicit any verbal or written comments from the public and from the council on the document itself to help make a decision as to what components you want to pursue further in order to be able to upgrade your wastewater treatment facility. And we'll talk a little bit about the conceptual design, regulatory review, and some of the approval steps. We want to go ahead and acknowledge Corey Morgan, helped immensely with providing information, also Sandra. This is as a result of an Idaho DEQ facility planning grant that the city of Cambridge was awarded. Now, the facility plan, Idaho DEQ, and any of the other funding agencies would utilize the information from the facility plan in order to pursue enhancements to a wastewater treatment facility, require that there be a facility planning document. The document follows a fairly rigid guideline that DEQ has available, which describes all the different parts and pieces that it likes to see with regards to the information available, and they would then use that in terms of determining, the preliminary engineering, both of the current conditions and projected future conditions, usually a 20-year time period into the future, so that if you look at things like population projections, the types of O&M, the costs for different things, any issues that might come up with permitting. In this case, you have a direct discharge permit, and so what are things that might come into play with that? Beyond that, then, in order to obtain additional funding, they need the facility plan for plans and specification, and then the next step, final step, would be construction of any system improvements. I'll let Robert discuss some of the details on the permits and other factors.
So this is your existing NPDES permit that was online in 2020 with a few modifications to it right after in early 2021. The major changes to this permit were mostly on the BOD and TSS. I think mainly monthly averages for BOD and TSS remained the same, except the percent removal was a little bit more stringent on the TSS and a little bit more relaxed on the BOD as far as percent removal. Another new pollutant that was enforced was the total ammonia and temperature. So those were the main components of it. Sorry. So this remained the same from last time, 45 milligrams per liter per month. But this, no.
That's the average loading.
Sorry, yeah. Where's the
Percent removals are the third one. Oh. Yeah, right there.
Okay. I can't see it that good yet.
Yeah.
This is 68, I believe.
Yep.
This was relaxed, and this is 71. I think it's more stringent than last time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is your other new pollutant that is enforced, total ammonia. That wasn't enforced last time. And temperature. That's your, yeah. And then this is the revised option B schedule for based on this new existing IPDS permit up to its renewal in 2025. As you can see, this is the compliance schedule that implements the total ammonia compliance schedule mainly was the option B, and it's up through March 1st of 2029. Most of the, some of these have already been started or completed. The next big item is item number 3 as a PER preliminary engineering report that's due in the 1st of January of 2025 based on these new limits. With there's a final completion, final design completion in March 1st of 2025, and that includes your plans and specifications, basically design of what comes out of the PR. At the PR stage, you'll set your proposed project. In here's where we get into the deep design for what's going to come out of that, the city's selected alternative instead of this facility plan. So after this is the PR, and then it goes into the final design. Then after that, there's going to be progress reports of the, as for completion of those milestones up to until construction. Basically, step 7 and 8 are your last items for as far as construction completion, any O&M manuals, and then basically when you get your new wastewater treatment plant online and it's achieving its proposed intended limits. This is the date that DEQ has based on the new compliance schedule. And on this option B, it's a year that allows for the bidding and construction process, including the design, award of contract, and then up to 2 years of construction completion based on this one. So these are the collection and treatment system findings and deficiencies that were discussed in the facility plan. Previously, phase 1, phase 2 were replaced, most of them on the 2017 and 2018 projects composed of phase 1 and phase 2. These were not completed after talking with Corey. We saw Cemetery Road, Jennifer Street, and on that alley that goes from between 4th and 5th all the way to 3rd and 4th. That was one of the issues that are mainly suspectful sources of I&I, which results on this. During the discussion on the facility plan, between these years there was multiple occurrences that were above the 120 gallon per minute gallon per capita a day threshold for I&I. With the exception of these 2 years, there was very high I&I, 275 gallons per capita a day. So this is pretty excessive for those years. And these are the sources that are typically for I&I are manholes, broken pipe, potentially at service connections. So what the facility plan discusses is rehab of those pipe segments or replacement, and starting with the highest priority segments first, which Corey mentioned. Cemetery Road is its main culprit for these I&I sources, and this facility plan, the outcome of it is to address service connections, as mentioned, pipes, mains, and manholes, and then ahead and after that, a CCTV inspection to find the sources, and then we do one more CCTV to ensure that those segments were addressed. That's how you typically do it, before and after. In addition, the facility plan, as previously discussed, discusses the wastewater facility plan, treatment facility upgrades to address the IPDS permits that include TSS and total ammonia is one of the biggest hits that weren't always consistently meeting permit limits. Again, I&I is a new permit limit that is not always in compliance, and it's an unknown how future-wise how that's going to be addressed, because that's a new limit that historically hasn't been consistently tested for meeting permit limits. And essentially, if this is done, it'll increase the useful life of the treatment plant and essentially reducing cyanide flows. Next. So these, as you all know, in 2018, EPA sent a violation letter to the city regarding consistent total ammonia and TSS violations, and that appears to have been ongoing since then. In 2019, the city received a letter from Idaho Conservation League. Basically, they wanted intended to initiate a lawsuit against the city. At the conclusion of the meeting, they mentioned they would be aware and monitor if there's any if the violations were eliminated. So they would basically keep an eye out based on out of what their conversation was with the city. Again, the existing treatment facility is well operated. It just wasn't intended to. It wasn't designed to address the previous limits, for example, total ammonia. And this is what EPA violations are. It could be up to $32,500 per day if those aren't addressed. And I'll let George continue with the graphical images of the pollutants.
Now, one of the things to consider with the permit, the ammonia you've had to monitor, but you haven't had an actual permit limitation. The renewal permit that's coming up, which is the discussion of kind of the option B schedule, is going to be the implementation of a ammonia limitation for your direct discharge. So that's kind of one of the main things that's driving needing to do some upgrades in your wastewater treatment facility. When you look at the overall performance with regards to the existing facility for the biological oxygen demand, or BOD, the organic matter that is in the wastewater, the limits were 30, they're now up to 45. In the context of then what happened with the percent removal, it had been higher back in 2019. They relaxed that a little bit, primarily because your facility is operating very well with regards to reduction of the organic matter. And the I&I that is in your system is what's helping allow that treatment facility to work efficiently in that respect, but only for that one parameter. If you look here, the total suspended solids across that same time period, each of those dots represents a measurement that's been made. The dark line is essentially the limitation that you have imposed at 45 milligrams per liter. Most of the dots are below, but you've got some that are above, so you've had some violations just in this time period from, basically January of 19 to 22, which is the time period we use in our study. And the other aspect is then your percent removal. You see the dark line represents what it was, and it shifted a little bit higher. And you've got several dots below that line, meaning that you did not meet the efficiency of removal for solids. So solids is definitely an item of concern. Ammonia, you're typically, the value that is used is 10 milligrams per liter. So you're looking to see, okay, are your measurements at 10 milligrams per liter in your effluent or lower? And that line kind of represents where that is. Next, please. And The data didn't come up very well, but you have some values that were below the line, and you had quite a few points that were above the line. So ammonia, you're not able to consistently meet with the existing treatment facility. And with the stipulation that you're going to get an actual limitation now for the future with your new permit for direct discharge, you're going to have to be able to essentially upgrade your treatment facility in some manner so that you can address that and make sure that your effluent is going to have values below that, and so you're not going to incur any violations. Typically, during the planning period, which we're looking at a 20-year period down the road to 2043, in that period, you have potential for increased infiltration and inflow, I&I, which if you're able to address it up front, you could keep it into a manageable maintenance mode. But if you don't address them as things come up and kind of push them off, which some communities do, then you're saddled with emergency repairs, emergency maintenance when something breaks or something happens. So the idea of the facility plan is kind of forward-looking, forward-thinking, trying to give you an idea and a handle on what sorts of things you might expect down the road. Now, the ongoing permit violations, consent order, are more than likely going to be imposed for real at this point in time if some kind of an upgrade, some kind of an improvement is not made. And as I mentioned, you get that kind of an order from EPA, you're going to get fines. Now, that will pretty much mandate then that you will do something if you're going to keep a direct discharge. There's a possibility of further upgrades may be needed down the road, dependent upon what would happen with your permit. Now, the levels for ammonia have not gone any lower than 10 milligrams per liter in any time in the last couple decades, and it's not likely that they will change any lower for streams in going into the future. But it is a number that you do have to be aware of. Robert talked about the different collection and treatment priorities that we came up with in the plan.
As mentioned earlier, the recommended system improvements based on discussion with the city and our findings. The first priority again is Cemetery Road, which is about close to 1,250 feet of 8-inch lineal feet of pipe. And included in that discussion with Corey was the replacement pumps for both lift stations, the North Central and the Rush Creek. And the city requested looking into a standby generator at City Hall. And also, this North Fifth Street has, up to this North Central lift station has, it's a dirt road, so mitigation of that is having some manhole pans to alleviate and prevent those rocks, gravel going into the grinder pump. So that's the intent of getting those North Fifth Street gravel road with manhole pans. So the cost estimate was around $576,000 for these items for the first priority. Second priority involves Jennifer Street to Haller and again the alley between 4th and 5th up to the alley between 3rd and 4th. And second priority collection system items total up to approximately $148,000, which was the approximate for the priority 2 options in this facility plan. When looking into the facility plan, we looked at various project alternatives, and the ones we looked into were that were most feasible at the time were the collection system improvements, of course, priority 1, and the aerated lagoons to alleviate and address the total ammonia permit limit exceedances. Alternative 2 was looked into as well, that involves the high priority collection system improvements and recycled water reuse. Alternative 3, again, the high priority collection system items and for treatment, the non-discharging evaporation ponds. However, when we, as further looked into and discussed with the city, recycled water reuse and non-discharging evaporation lagoons, the city does not have guaranteed the amount of land, the 40+ acres, to address the recycled water reuse and evaporated lagoons. They're just, and plus it was expensive at it tripled and quadrupled, it doubled and quadrupled the amount compared to high performance area lagoons. So that's why these weren't looked into further for those two reasons. So that was left to on your facility plan page, section 511. You'll see discusses this and the facility improvements that were feasible and recommended were the high performance area lagoons, along with the high priority collection system items, which consist of a treatment building expansion at the existing treatment facility, wastewater treatment facility, and the high performance area lagoons with all its construction, excavation, dike resurfacing, and it involves a new headworks, a new UV disinfection system with associated piping, and generator and SCADA improvements. So advantages of the alternative 1, the high performance area lagoons with the collection system priority 1 improvements are, compared to the other two, the recycled water reuse and the non-evaporative ponds, where it's low in initial cost compared to them again. The other two were double and quadruple the cost, and this alternative gets the highest effluent possible, and the operation is more or less the same as the current operation. And of course, anytime you address any collection system improvements, you increase its useful life. And another one was it doesn't impact any of these environmental areas, or its fauna and flora, hydrology, and floodplains, and everything else you see in these that first alternative doesn't impact. And also it'll increase, it'll be designed to increase future connections and improve the capacity treatment. The major disadvantage of the area lagoons option, alternative 1, is compared to the others, has the highest O&M costs because you're going to have a new headworks and aeration is going to increase. You got bigger blowers, so that's how it involves the highest O&M compared to a recycled water reuse or evaporative ponds. It doesn't have those components and that relates to increased power. And another disadvantage, like George previously said, I mean, any future IPS permit revisions, if they're more stringent, might not be addressed on this project. So, based on the 277 EDUs that the city has, alone won't have enough funding to cover it. So that's why there's assisted programs from IDQ, USDA Rural Development and RD, and the CDBG and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers have various funding packages with different percentages: 30% grant, 70% loan type. DEQ, like the one that the city applied for on this wastewater loan LOI, has rates as low as 0%. So there's a various different scenarios of what funding packages are available to the city. It's just the intent is to have the city check which one they want to pursue with, and if and when they choose to move forward with this project. Financing strategies. Begin discussions with the funding agencies. Again, the city already started talking to DEQ. They apply to the FY fiscal year 25 LOI for the wastewater side. Submitting letters of interest. The city already started that step. and that'll maximize your funding and principal forgiveness. And again, considering these sources of funding, RDAQ, RDCDBG, and evaluating the funding requirements and selecting the package that best fits the city. Questions, comments?
Should I turn the light on?
Yeah, go ahead. I think we're done, aren't we? The presentation?
Yes.
Just a question. This has nothing to do with anything, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Of how many cities do you represent as an engineering firm?
We quite a lot. It represents, I mean, which ones or how many?
Well, how many of them do you work on their facilities just like you're working on ours?
I think City of Fayette, City of New Plymouth, City of Grandview, City of Nissa.
City of Melba.
So does all of them have identical problems? Or is ammonia a big deal for everybody? I mean,
For some, yes, but not for all of them. Some of them already have either an evaporative system or a land reuse system.
okay.
And that, while on the surface, they would be very nice to have, because then you would eliminate the direct discharge into the stream going into the Weezer River. The problem with that is the cost of either acquiring land or securing long-term leases with adjacent farmlands gets to be fairly expensive. And that's what drove up the cost. O&M goes down, way down with those types of options. But, the upfront capital cost gets to be very, very large.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we opted to not recommend one of those as a direct possibility with input from Corey and others, that, something that you can make use of what you have, keeping your permit and ensuring that you're going to meet any and all, at least existing permit requirements, and more than likely, future ones, at least during your design period, the 20-year design period, seemed like the best approach.
So is the solution just evaporation? I mean, we're putting in more.
It is a solution. City of New Plymouth has a set of ponds, and they're looking to possibly, they have an evaporative solution right now. They're actually looking to possibly move to a land reuse, but they have an additional 20 plus acres of ground that is, they're leasing out to a farmer that they can press into service and make that type of a jump with very minimal cost differential for them. City of Melba is an evaporative solution only. They have right now a total of 7 ponds, one of which is their primary treatment, and the rest are the actual evaporation ponds, totaling, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 acres. And they're looking for, again, their 20-year planning period. While their growth has been very slow, very low at this point, should they actually start to get growth as a suburb of Boise, so to speak, then they're looking at having to probably put in almost as much additional pond area to keep that evaporative solution viable. In this case, though, they do have about another 20 or 30 acres of ground that they already own that they can make that work. So every city that we look at them individually without regards to what's happening around them. What are they doing now? What would be best that they can afford and that they can implement that's going to keep them in compliance.
If we speculate, is evaporation going to be the permanent solution for ammonia? Or 10, 15 years down the road, DEQ is going to say, you've got ammonia going into the air, it's ruining the ozone. Now what are we going to do?
No, so
I mean, what happens when the ammonia evaporates? Is it still ammonia going up into the air?
Ammonia typically is not a material that will become airborne. It will stay in liquid or stay in the solids that might settle out in the bottom of the pond. When you have direct discharge, it's tied up in the liquid solution, so it will go out in the effluent. It may be attached to solid particles in that effluent, which if you have high solids, you also have a corresponding high ammonia. You can add additional types of treatment where you convert the ammonia, make sure it's converted all to nitrate and nitrite, and then by using a anaerobic or without oxygen process, you can convert it to nitrogen gas, and that will evolve into the atmosphere. And so now your nitrogen content in your effluent becomes very close to zero. But that's a completely additional level of conversion of ammonia all the way through to the final nitrogen gas.
So when they're using the evaporative, they're basically just evaporating water, concentrating the ammonia down in there so that it doesn't go anywhere.
Yes, exactly. Now, if you were to use, for example, a land reuse, now that ammonia becomes a nutrient for the plants. So you have plant uptake into, and there are only certain types of crops that you typically would utilize, grasses, silage corn, alfalfa, those types of things, which will improve your yields quite a bit. It's not very likely to migrate down into the ground. It'll be applied on the surface. The plants will immediately uptake it, and so now you've converted that in from a liquid pollutant into a nutrient for your crops.
So you could sell it to the farmers.
That is correct. That's one of the big advantages to those facilities that have that, is that they are able to get better yields for grasses and the silage corn, but they're able to convert it into a material that their animals can use as feed.
See, the problem with that is the time of year that we discharge. Because we don't discharge every month. I mean, we just don't do that. In the summer months, it'd be awesome, but when you have to discharge in February,
Yeah, generally
the
discharge
plants aren't gonna uptake much.
February, March.
As you're spraying it on the farmer's field, it's just getting more wet than it already is
Yeah.
and running off into the river. Still,
That is the downside to that. That's correct. I quit.
You quit.
There's a place on the agenda for discussion here after.
yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, we'll continue on with our actual hearing. It's now 7:40 p.m. The place is Cambridge City Hall. This is the time and place scheduled for the public hearing regarding what's proper terminology for this? Regarding,
Technically approved wastewater facility plan and alternatives.
okay, plug that in, good. We're located here at 80 South Superior. The Purpose of this hearing is to receive public input and public testimony concerning the proposed solution to our problem. Considerations. The clerk has already read the notice of the hearing. Each person who wants to be heard shall step to the microphone, identify themselves for the record, and express their feelings concerning this matter. Although no one is going to be administered an individual oath, all persons giving testimony will be doing so under penalty of perjury. This hearing will be recorded on an audio recording device capable of being transcribed, and any person desiring to have a copy may obtain a copy at their own expense. This is not a courtroom, and no one will be subject to cross-examination. Although the council may have a few questions of the people who give testimony, the council will entertain no questions. If you desire to know how an individual council member stands on the issue, you are most welcome to attend the meeting which will follow the hearing, listen to the council's discussion, and observe the voting. Did we have any written testimony that was?
We had none.
Okay. Then we will begin with testimony in favor of our system that we've discussed. I wish I had the terminology in front of me, but
It's on your sheet, the one that, the sign-up sheet. Well, and your agenda, it's on both of them.
in favor of the technically approved wastewater facility plan and alternatives under construction. Consideration, sorry. Any testimony? Okay. Is there any testimony against the technical approval wastewater facility plan and alternatives under consideration? Being none, are there any neutral comments about what we're discussing tonight? Okay, if there's no more testimony, this hearing is declared closed.